Welcome to Miss Win Checking In, the space where creativity meets healing. Here, we explore the path of mindful expression through the lens of writing, wellness, and soulful storytelling. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, how are you feeling right now? If you're watching this on YouTube, drop an emoji in the comments to represent how you're feeling. And then let's check in at the end. Let's take a deep breath, tune in, and prepare to create from within. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Miss Win checking in, and I'm back with another wonderful episode. Tonight, we're going to be talking about self expression and mental health, so make sure you listen in. I'm so excited to have a special guest on the show. So, before we dive into the heart of our conversation, I would love for our listeners to get to know you.
Okay, great. So my name is Elijah Ivry. I'm originally from Warner Robins, Georgia. I've been living in the DMV area for going on about 15 years now. So I appreciate being on your platform and being able to kind of give my piece of advice back to those who are wondering how to deal with writing and just your mental health. So I definitely appreciate that. I'm also a veteran as well. So Navy. And that's the reason why I came to Virginia. I got stationed here, and since then, I've just been living here and making the most of my life as I can.
Nice, wonderful. So, I mean, let's just get vulnerable, I guess, and ask this question. So, can you share a moment then from your personal healing journey that has significantly influenced your writing? I did see that you're a singer or a songwriter. Do you write your own songs? So, I'm
Yeah,
going to just
so
ask you two questions, whichever one you want to answer first.
okay, that's fine then. So, as far as the vulnerability, for me, once I got out the military, I wasn't in the best position, I would say mentally and also financially. And so for me, I had to be honest with myself and wanting a better life because with everything that I worked for up to that point, I just didn't want to go to waste, with the skills and just different things that I had working in my favor that I learned, the different tools and things like that from the military. I wanted to take that on and have more for myself. So at that point, I was kind of in the crossroads in my life because I just felt like I didn't want to let myself down first, but I also didn't want to let family down and friends down that I knew cared about me and stuff like that. So at that point, I enrolled into school for a period of time, just so that way I could have some type of day-to-day interaction of learning, but also being around other people too. So, because sometimes when you're secluded, it can kind of mess with you mentally, and so that helped me out being able to be around other people and stuff like that. And what was so interesting was when I enrolled in the school was John Tyler, a community college down there around like the Colonial Heights area. So for me, I was like, okay, I just left from being in Guam, with the military. Now, I'm in school, so it was some adjusting for me, but at the same time, it helped me out, and it showed that sometimes it's okay to go through things and feel like hey, I've been humble. Maybe I was there were certain things that I thought about or certain things where I was like, man, I'm good right now. I got the military taking care of me. This is gonna last forever, but then reality sets in and then you have to make those critical decisions and stuff like that, and that's kind of what happened. And from there I had people in my life that I met through the military and stuff that were there. Of course, I had my family, back home that were always praying for me, always there for me in any way that I needed it. And so it just showed me that you don't have to do everything alone. And that's something for me. I've always kind of been the type of person where I may keep things in, but sometimes it's good to be able to express how you feel in a way where it's not becoming a problem for someone else, where you're taking your emotions out on them versus being able to say, okay, let me figure out the best way I want to, what I'm saying, share this with them without feeling like I'm being overbearing or just kind of being too much. And so that was that transition for me. And that was roughly around the latter part of 2016 when I kind of was kind of going through that stage. And just to answer your second question about the music. So I am a writer. I've been writing has always been like my passion since I was younger. So I've always, written, whether it was poems, I will redo songs, and so I just got to a point where I wanted to do my own music, and that was more so recent around 2020. I just felt like it was something really missing when it came to music or just how we were shown on I feel like TV and just social media in general. It was enough people being okay with not having to show or be degenerate, you know what I'm saying? And so I just took a different approach with the way I went about things and show that you can still be cool, you can still be somebody people can enjoy their music without you feeling like you have to have a story of having to sell something, move something, shoot somebody and stuff like that, which I mean everybody has their story, but there's other ways to get your point across as well. And there's gonna be somebody who's resonate with it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know I was like trying to do a little bit of research before we started recording.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was looking or listening, looking and listening at a song that you were saying or singing about. You can see my ancestors in my
Oh
eyes.
yeah.
I was like, okay, okay, I vibe with that. And so I'm curious how your emotions and maybe even just your personal experiences fit into the narratives of, your poems, your songs, and specifically that one that I just mentioned.
So and I'm glad you brought that up. So Ancestors, that was the song I wrote some years ago. I want to say roughly around like 20, maybe 2021, 2022. And I got the opportunity to perform that down in Charlotte, and that was one of two songs that I performed for the first time ever live that I wrote, and so that's a very special one. And for those who probably didn't even know that backstory, that's where it comes from. But that particular song, Ancestors, because within our community, we go through so much, and there's not a dollar amount that can, you know, change all the things that was passed down to us, whether it's just the trauma, um, and so many in the imagery that we hear about from our grandparents or our parents and stuff like that they went through growing up in around the civil rights era and stuff like that. And so for me, I always want to make sure I'm showing reverence to those that came before me, because music is more than just a beat and a catchy hook, you know what I'm saying, or taglines. For me, it's about understanding what's going on in the world. And if you have the gift or ability to speak about it, you do that. You know what I'm saying? If it's in you, but that's the thing, it has to be in you. And for me, I know there has been things that have been passed down to me that I want to be able to share with the world and stuff like that. You know what I mean? From other family who are creatives and artists of all different kinds of genres and stuff like that. And so for me, it's just showing people the inspiration that I've gotten, and then ancestors is basically, you know, throughout everything that we go through. When you see me, you see a reflection of those that came before me. And so I need to make sure that I'm honoring them with the things that I do.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I love that. So then on the opposite end, other than, well, not really on the opposite end, maybe on the flip side, we've talked about how you've expressed yourself through your writing, and you said through poetry as well. Have you found writing to be healing, or have you found writing to be your own form of healing and to be therapeutic? If so, can you share how?
Oh yeah. So for me, I'm constantly thinking of different things going on in the world, thinking about family, just thinking about things I want to do just personally in my life. And so writing, I feel like has been like a very calming experience for me to be able to get out those thoughts. And I just think about, people who sometimes go on walks or they go on trails, or they go hiking and they just get to the top of the mountain and they just scream out whatever they're feeling. And it's just a way to kind of, I feel like for me, just keep myself really balanced, because it's something that it brings me joy when I write, or express myself. And whether, people gravitated to or not, it's something that does something for me. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest things people need to realize when they find something that brings them joy. If it brings you joy and it's not hurting you, then that's something that you should hold on to. You know what I'm saying? Whether people maybe agree with it or not. Now, depending on what it is, people may say, nah, you should maybe try something else. But if it's something that's working for you, that's not taken away from you as just, a human being, or you're not, you know what I'm saying, just a lower version of yourself, then that's something you may want to stick with. And that's something that I found with the writing, and then just the different layers of how I express myself, and the different times, whether I'm happy, sad, or whatever. I just try to put it, on the page or in my phone, and I just kind of go from there. And sometimes I look back just to remind myself, like, wow, I felt like this 2 weeks ago, and today I feel totally different. So, it's a
Yeah.
good way to kind of, leave yourself a trail.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have talked about this as well in a different episode, but I feel like there's a theme running together here, and that's this self-expression really is for you. Even if you do choose to share it with the world, that process of getting it down on paper, that process of releasing it, however it may be, like you said, whether it's yelling at the top of your lungs on the top of a mountain, or in your car, just releasing that emotion however you see fit, that's not gonna hurt you or maybe not gonna hurt anybody else, but just getting that out there. And then if you can even put it into some art form, singing, dancing, writing, painting, put it into a book, however you want to share that and put that out there into the world, hey, you can even do that as well. I know another lady was telling me, she was saying how she does voice journaling. So
Mm,
she'll turn on her phone, turn on her little voice memo app, and she'll just sit there, hit the parking lot at work, and start just talking to her phone. And sometimes that's what you got to do. It's not really hurting anybody. It's for you. Somebody could be on the outside looking at you. They don't know what you got going on. All they see is you talking to your phone. Who cares? At the end of the day, your healing is really your responsibility. But I do like what you said earlier about getting into community, because a lot of times, and I see it all the time on social media, where it's like isolation is elevation, isolation, get isolated, whoop, whoop, whoop. And there's a season for that, but I also feel like there's also a season for community. I know for me, I have been able to just heal from different traumatic experiences, not 100% by myself. I had to get in community, one, to not be alone, right? Because an idle mind, I feel like, is the devil's playground. You can get lost in your mind and
hmm
lose yourself. You can lose your mind just being by yourself. So being with other people is also helpful. But also in community, you really find out how you're healing, like what your triggers are. Because sometimes people can be a mirror for you, and they can show you, like, hey, I said something that maybe wasn't as big of a deal, but you blew up on me, like, hey, are you okay? And you can never really know if you're healed from a certain situation until you are put in that situation again. Um, and I'm not talking about, like, you don't need to be put back. Like, there's certain things that you don't need to reface again to know if you are healed from it or not. Right. But there are some situations where it's like, especially in relationships, and I'm talking about like boyfriend, girlfriend type of relationships, you won't really know if you're healed in that area until you're in the process of doing that again with somebody else, kind of thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I don't know how we went all the way left field with that, but my point is community is important in order for you to be able to really gauge where you are in your healing journey. Does that make sense?
No, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And just to kind of piggyback when you was mentioning about isolation, like, especially for people who may work from home, you're already isolated
Hmm.
enough, and not just people that work from home, but just people in general who are homebodies, which is cool. But as humans, I feel like it's good for us to be around other humans to know how to interact. I feel it's a lot of people who don't know how to really deal with other people because they're so used to being around themselves. So they know how to deal with things on their level and everything like that. But then when you're dealing with somebody else, you can say, okay, you know what? I see their approach or their perspective on things versus kind of condemning them for everything because they don't fit your narrative. So I can understand why it's good to be around people, just the fellowship. And you never know who's going through something similar to you. And you know what I mean? And sometimes it's great to be around people where y'all can build and, you know what I'm saying, a community of people that want to uplift.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I'm curious then. So when you're writing your songs and your poetry, do you ever face any challenges when you're trying to integrate real life experiences into your work?
Well, actually, when it comes to that, I feel like that's when I started to make my shift, when I started to incorporate more vulnerable lyrics into my writing. And not just about what I'm experiencing, but what I'm seeing going on in the world or within this country. So incorporating that, I feel it shows that you don't have to worry about what you think people may say because it may not fit what's going on right now. But something about your story, you never know who may pick it up or may hear it. You know what I mean? The right person that needs to hear it will hear it, you know what I'm saying? And that's why it's like most times it's called your testimony. Things that you've been through or you're currently going through right now, you overcome it. And so I felt like if I put my testimony into these lyrics and stuff like that, or things I would like to see, speak things into existence. Shout out to Kim B. Miller. She has an open mic, and that's, you know what I'm saying, the name of that, speaking to existence. So just having those affirmations, I feel like that's something that helps out, and the energy that I'm putting into the music as well, coming from those lyrics.
Yeah. So do you find any of that challenging? Like what part is any of that hard for you to do just with your process?
For me, it hasn't really been hard for me as far as the process. When I'm thinking of, say for instance, if I want to write a song about things going on, maybe with kids and stuff like that, I try to, kind of do my research on, what's going on right now or what's affecting kids. Maybe if I know some parents and stuff like, hey, what are some things that you're dealing with or whatever, so I can kind of speak from a certain perspective, but also incorporate how I felt as a child or certain things that, what I'm saying, I was trying to get a better understanding of, and I understood as an adult. So being able to have those different perspectives to pull from, so it hasn't really been hard for me. I just say that I just try to make sure that I'm very matter of fact with the things that I say. You know what I mean, and just don't say something to put something out because it's like I'm trying to keep up with an algorithm or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that leads into my next question just about authenticity. Just how do you make sure that you're authentic, showing up as yourself, in your writing? And like you said, not trying to do something for the algorithm. So that seems like one thing, but what else?
Yeah, so when it comes to, when I'm putting projects out and stuff like that, for me being original is the best thing I can do because there's nobody else like me. Like it's nobody else like you and everybody else in this world. And I think now what's happening is we're not just getting oversaturated with people that sound the same, but just people who are afraid to really think outside the box or feel like, okay, well, this is what's winning. This is where the money is going. You know what I'm saying? I don't
Mhm.
do what I do for the money. I feel like that my gift is gonna pay itself off, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna have favor and stuff like that for things to come, my way, and also be able to give it back out, what I mean, create opportunities for other people. So for me, I'm just very comfortable with myself, and I just think that's why people who do enjoy what I put out, they do understand, okay, this is who he is. He's not trying to be somebody else. He's not, trying to play a role for people to follow him. Because the thing about it is, whatever you do that people are hyped about, I would say you got to follow that up, and that's why a lot of people kind of miss the goal. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like you're doing something that's not really you, but then you can't, what I'm saying, keep on, adding to that. So
Yeah.
when you're more comfortable with yourself and you love who you are, I just feel like that just helps not in just creatively, but just in general. You know what I'm saying? The way you handle yourself in the world and the way people deal with you.
Yeah, no, that last part, woo, you were talking to me because let me tell you what, I said this on quite a few episodes. So I'm gonna just have to, in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna have to clip this up and put it all together how many times I said this, but talk about, but at the same time, maybe not. So I'm just gonna tell you what was going on with me. So I'm an author and I also publish books, and I've been on intentionally been on a healing journey, I want to say at least for 10 years, for sure for 7 years. Also while trying to maintain a business and be a mom. And so one of the things that I did before I did this podcast is I was doing author interviews, just straight author interviews, asking questions about books. And it would be so draining. Like I would get off and be so tired and just really not understand why. there would be instances where it's like I'm super enthusiastic, I'm coming with good energy. The other person on the other side of the screen would be like, dang, you have amazing energy. Meanwhile, they're boring. And so it was just like, I'm like trying to keep it, oh, I'm so excited. Like, I'm really hyped to talk about this stuff. And the other person would be so boring. But it was safe for me. Like I said, I was on my healing journey, and this was just something that was safe for me. And this is what I have come to understand, just kind of in hindsight. Like, okay, I was doing this because it was easy, because I felt like I had to do that because I'm a book publisher. And as a book publisher, you're an advocate for authors, right? And so I thought, okay, well, let me do this. Let me offer this service. Let me help authors increase their impact and increase their influence and reach their audience. However, in doing that, yeah, I helped a lot of authors out, but I wasn't being true to myself. I was bored out of my mind. And so when somebody asked me towards the end of last year, like, hey, Miss One, are you gonna come back with author interviews? Man, I must have gave them the ugliest look. Like, man, you know what? I said, I can't do it. I said, really, I'm bored out of my mind with author interviews. But that question got me thinking, like, okay, I feel like I'm in a better place mentally. I feel like I'm a lot healthier than 7, even 10 years ago. I feel like I'm better than last year. But it was like, what is it that I want to do? I know that I enjoy doing podcasts. I know that I enjoy showing up. I know that I enjoy collaborating with others. Just those key pieces that I had with author interviews. I said, okay, what can I do that is going to charge me up and bring me joy? And this podcast kind of just came to me because as an author, I talk about mental health, I talk about body, I talk about mind and spirit. And so it's just like, well, let's figure out how I can integrate those things. And so from that, this podcast was born. And when I get off of these different recordings, I feel so good. I feel so charged up. Most of them are recorded at night, but even then, I still feel like a whole nother wave of just fresh air, a whole nother wave of energy just hits me and I still feel good. And to me, that's a big signal of, okay, you're where you're supposed to be, because this is something that I can talk about all the time. This is just something I can talk about all the time. And so when you said, when you're not being your authentic self, it's like you have to keep going with that thing. And I was like, man, I had run out of things to talk about with book publishing. There's only so much you can say, is how I started to feel like, man, I done said it all. I done taught about it. Now what is going to be my next step? And this feels like this is going to be my next step. Does that mean I stopped talking about book publishing? No, it just means in this season, me talking about mental health is going to take precedence. And I still work with authors because a lot of the speakers that I have on my podcast are authors. And so we still get into a little bit of the book context.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just an example of how that has shown up in my own life. But and I don't know, you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned manifestation and affirmations, but I want to go there for a second because perfect self-expression was something that I wanted to manifest. I said, okay, if I can express myself in the way that fits my standards, then that will unlock so many doors for me. And so I feel like this podcast is a manifestation of my desire to have perfect self-expression and and talk about mental health. Like I'm just like this just feels good to me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nah, I feel that. I definitely get that. Yeah, speaking of like manifestation, um, I know for myself, before I even started like really performing heavy and like really writing a lot of music, more than I have in previous years, I used to be in my room. I used to just kind of walk around and tell myself like I'm gonna face the crowd. That was my theme, like face the crowd.
Mhm.
Because if you have, something in you that, you want to share with others and it's going to benefit yourself, but also benefit others just as much, you're going to have to face the crowd. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to get out your comfort
Mhm.
zone. And another thing too, when you were speaking, I was thinking about people. being okay with pivoting. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
maybe making a pivot here or there, because you can always sometimes cycle back to something that you wanted to do, but now you've gained or garnered a certain amount of energy, you know what I'm saying, in a mindset to where now you can tackle those issues that you couldn't before when they came about, dealing with something that you were working on, when you mentioned about with the author interviews and stuff like that. And just to kind of also reiterate on some that you was mentioning about, sometimes I feel like it's boring or you're giving all the energy. It is great when you are able to have discernment, you know what I'm saying, and be able to vet people out, because a lot of times people aren't really serious about what they're talking about. They're in it for
Mhm.
fame. They let, maybe one or two viral moments, you know what I'm saying, kind of get to their head. And then at the same time, there's people who feel like, hey man, something is missing, something is lackluster, because at the same time, when you're feeding off of the numbers and that's what drives you, then it's going to play out in whatever you're, showcasing and stuff like that. So I try to make sure, you know, and everything I do, whether it's one person in the crowd, or whether it's one person that listens to anything that I put out, I try to make sure I give you my best. You know what I mean? Because at the
Mhm.
same time, I value that those who see something in me, they even want to take time away from their day to, what I'm saying, want to invest in me for that moment in time. And and everybody doesn't think like that. Everybody isn't going to appreciate your platform the way you're going to appreciate it. And then to all those that's, what I'm saying, watching and listening to this as well. So you gotta stand fast in what you believe in, and just be consistent in your own way. Sometimes we speak things over our lives that, you end up finding yourself walking back like, oh well, maybe I'll get there, maybe I'll not. Know what's going to happen and walk like it's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Walk with your
Yeah.
head up, and it's easier said than done, but you have to put the work in. Sometimes people want to avoid the work,
Yeah.
um, and just feel like, okay, well, I'm just gonna catch lightning in the bottle, you know what I'm saying? And then everything's gonna be great, and stuff like that. And it's like it's so many ways or different avenues of approach that you can take to be successful. You know what I mean? If being successful is how much money you got, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna have problems. That doesn't mean that you still need to
Mhm.
get checkups and stuff like that. Make sure your health good, because it's a lot of wealthy people who are out here not able to even like live out a good portion of their life, because they only value that monetary gain versus the mental, you know what I'm saying, the physical. And even for your everyday person, you know what I'm saying, the quote unquote 9 to 5s, we also have to, value that as well, you know what I mean? And just believe in what you do. The energy you put into something, it's gonna show for itself. So if you put minimal energy in there, that's what's gonna come out, and the people they're gonna see that. You know what I mean? You're gonna try, you can't sell something to somebody and then think, oh well, they're gonna feel like I put 100% in here when you only did 30. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's something that I had shared with authors before is you're gonna get out of this whatever you put into it.
Hmm.
And same thing. And sometimes you do have to invest. A lot of these things are not free. They might be low cost. The other day I had a young lady on and we were talking about like therapy. And I said, well, one of the main reasons why people do not get therapy is because of the cost. And she was like, well, there's something for everybody, no matter what your budget is. You just have to be willing and you just have to have the desire and courage and put in the effort to go find something that can fit your budget. But if you just have the idea that, oh, well, this is going to be too expensive, and so you never go after it, then it's like you're doing yourself a disservice. But it's kind of the same thing with any form of art. You have to invest something, whether it be your time, your money, it's going to be something. You got to invest something in, like you said, just be and know that you will get something back from it.
Yeah.
I've seen too many times people cut corners and then they put a high price tag on something, and it's like, then they're kind of disappointed, how come this is not selling? What's going on? And it's like, well, it looks like you cut corners and it's apparent. And even if it's your first time, it's like, okay, this is a learning experience. And I try and tell people that all the time. When you're doing something for the first time, give yourself grace, especially when it comes to being a creative. Give yourself time, stick with it for the long game, especially as an author. Some of the best selling authors have over 30 books. And so if you're just getting into the game, you're just putting out your first book or you're just putting out your first album or your first song, you're still a baby. Like you have to see that. And sometimes it's okay to compare yourself to other people and say, hey, you know what? The person that I admire, they've been in the game for 20, 30 years. So you can't expect your year one to look like somebody's year 30. They had to get it out the mud just like what you're doing. And I think when we can put things into perspective like that, it can also help us mentally instead of
Yeah.
thinking that you're in year one, you're just gonna pop out and like everything's gonna be sweet for the rest of your career. No, it's there's gonna be ups and downs, but it's very rare that in year one things are gonna go how you want them to go. And I think one of the things that I do as a publisher is I help manage those expectations. And it's just like, you know what, this is your first book. Maybe we're going to grow together. Maybe when we get to book number 10 or book number 7, and that might seem like a lot, but if you're really about it, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so, and I do have people that say, oh, okay, really, okay, book 7, cool. I still got some more writing to do. Absolutely, I still got. I always tell people there's always more. There's always more, and that can be however you see it. That can be something good, or that can be something negative. But for me, saying that there's always more, that just means like abundance. Like there's always more opportunities. There's always more people. There's always more chances. Um, and but putting in that effort, like you said, and putting in that work is also we gonna need more of it. You just got to continue with that.
Yeah, most definitely. And I would just, add real quick, and you kind of touched on it, like at the tail end of that, just being able to branch out and network. I think sometimes people have a
Mm,
hard time networking because it's like, well, I'm me, so people should just come, check me out because because I'm me, or who I'm
yeah.
connected with, or who I know, who I'm taking pictures with. It's like, now you got to be able to do it for yourself. You got to be able to, get out here and do the grind. You can't feel like you're gonna start off and then already be, close to the finish line. Like, for myself personally, it took years to kind of get to where I'm at, when it comes to writing, when it comes to like recording a song and stuff like that. I used to do a lot of stuff myself because, you ask people here and there how you do this, or or do you know somebody and stuff like that in the years prior. And for me, I realized I want to know the ins and out, the stuff, and
Mhm.
and what I do in front of the camera, but also behind the scenes, because sometimes you may ask for advice, and there are going to be people who, they're going to give you the best answers that they know. But also sometimes people, if they feel like they're not getting nothing out of it, then it's like, why I put you on or something like that. And I just learned that, hey, it's good to know for yourself, and maybe I'll be able to also, what I'm saying, learn from others as well that's willing to teach you, and you actually see in your corner, versus they feel like it's some competition, or once you kind of get to a certain stage, now they want to kind of get on the bandwagon and stuff like that after the fact. You know what I mean? So I just say you got to just pay attention, be mindful, and don't think every smile is in your corner.
Yeah. So then what other advice then would you give to writers who want to start incorporating more so their personal story into their work?
I would say this. My tips for anybody that wants to incorporate their personal story is being okay with reliving certain things that could put you back in a certain frame of mind,
Mhm.
because sometimes it's hard to speak about things that brought you pain mentally or physically, you know what I'm saying, or a loss of a family member, or a breakup. I would say definitely write those things out, like I would say write out the certain things that you feel like really touch you the most, you know what I'm saying, and see how you feel when you're writing. See, okay, maybe I kind of need to, kind of cut away from this for a minute, get back to something else I can kind of digest more, that feels more comfortable at this moment in time. Because sometimes you may put something out and it's so heavy for you that, you're writing and stuff like that. Now you just kind of like want to be done with writing for a little while, because it's just like it's too much emotions on you. So just figure out what works for you as far as emotion level, and kind of write to that. But also just understand, when it comes to you writing something vulnerable, that you're not the only one that has went through that or will be going through that. You know what I'm saying? So just know that your story is going to help somebody. Now, I also want to add this in there too. If you're writing something and you feel like you want to add somebody's name in there, or whatever the case may be, just understand that, if you haven't had that conversation with them, or y'all, have gotten on good terms and you can tell your story, I would say at least give them a heads up, because sometimes people put these tell-all books out there and stuff, and people don't even know what's going on or how this person felt about them,
Mhm.
whether it was growing up or maybe something they done that they just never got to rectify, like in person, or just maybe over the phone. So I would say at least if you're able to reach out to that person that you may want to put in your book or your stories, whatever case may be, because you need to also be fair to them, and their character as well, because maybe they've changed since then. So I just feel like, certain things like that, because I know there are some people who want to talk about some things they went through, and the family member or the quote unquote friend or whatever that put them through that. And I feel like, you just at least want to give them that respect, you know what I'm saying? If nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. And shoot, again, in another episode, we were definitely talking about that when writing, especially your personal story, especially if you're sharing traumatic experiences.
Mhm.
Be ready for all that comes with that, the emotions that come back. Even in another podcast episode, I was talking about a traumatic moment. And while I was talking about it, I was visualizing it in my head, and I was just like, okay, let's change the subject because it was just a lot. But I mean, it is what it is, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you don't have to share everything. I think that's a piece of advice that I would like to give is
Yeah,
just you don't have to share everything. Like know your limits, know what triggers you, know what areas you're still working on, know what takes you too far back, know those things, know yourself and what you're okay with doing. Like you say, kind of feel it out. See if
yeah,
you really want to go down that road, and then do or don't. And you can even just go down that road for your own self to write it out, but you don't have to share it. It can be for you. And then you can decide if you share it or not.
yeah.
So with that, so how do you handle then the vulnerability that comes with sharing your personal healing stories in public writing?
Well, how I deal with the vulnerability, for me, it's healing. You know what I'm saying? It's my
Mhm.
way of freeing myself through my writing, not for people to validate it, but for more so for me to be able to get it from my mind, the
Mhm.
heart, and then be able to put it out. You know what I'm saying? And to say that, hey, even if I'm still going through this, what I'm saying, I was strong enough to write this down. You know what I'm saying? And say it out loud. You know what I'm saying? Or just make it, for people can just view it themselves and get their own viewpoints on it and stuff like that. So I just handle it by just looking at it as it's doing me a justice by freeing myself of maybe some of those thoughts and those feelings and stuff like that. Because it's different when you're thinking about it, it's in your head all day. But when you write it down, you look at it, and you read it, the next day and the next day, and then you go through things and you get over things, and it's like, wow, like I took the time to write out what was wrong, what I'm feeling, and then I'm able to reflect back on it. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that for me personally, I look at it as a way of freeing myself from those strongholds and stuff like that, versus just keeping everything inside.
Yeah, no, and to me it sounds like it's a mindset thing.
Yeah,
It is what you believe for it to be. And so yeah, if you're thinking that okay, this I'm gonna share this because this is healing for me, then it can be that. But I mean like, it could be whatever you want it to be. It's all about your mindset and how you frame it.
hmm,
And that's something that therapy has taught me is let's reframe this to be something that's more positive, not ignoring, because I also think there's positive and negative to everything. Um, and it's just how you look at it. But yeah, just having that proper mindset of, hey, I'm doing this and this is the purpose why. Give it a purpose. You don't have to just share to be willy-nilly sharing. I'm just gonna put my business out there for the world just to do it. I mean, maybe that can be your purpose.
yeah,
That would be my purpose. That would be my purpose. But I'm saying it definitely is a mindset thing for sure.
no, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So then looking back, how has writing about your healing journey specifically, how has that impacted your personal growth?
I feel like in my personal growth, it has helped me out because I'm able now to be around other people and share my story in different ways, you know what I'm saying? Be able to kind of give advice. And I think for me, that's what I enjoy the most. Things that I've went through that people might be younger than me, or even people, my peers, or even older sometimes. Sometimes you may talk to somebody older where maybe they're going through something that, you've went through and they maybe handle it differently. And for that, they're still holding on to that. And so for me, sometimes it's showing, hey, there's a different approach to things and stuff. So I feel like it helped me to adapt to have better conversations with people, and also I feel like strengthen my mind to show that, hey, my lowest point doesn't define me. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna write the headline for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So, do you think that, or would you say that your writing is just kind of all self-inspired, or have you found inspiration from any other authors, any books, any other form of music, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so my writing, it could come from all different places. It can come from me thinking about my days in the military, the experience and the feelings I had there, relationships, networking with people that I see perform, and just the different things they may have went through behind the scenes to get to that point to be able to perform, or a specific song they're doing, or a piece of poetry they're reading and stuff like that. Understanding behind the scenes on that, and just writing from that inspiration, or vantage point and stuff like that. Sometimes it can be certain conversations I might have had with somebody where a person may say, we never hear, this or that talked about, and then finding a way to incorporate that, and then bringing it back to them and say, hey, I took what you said and I found a way to uh, put it in a way where you can kind of listen to it, and let me know what you think. So for me, I just kind of just see the power in writing, you know what I mean? And I see that so many different backgrounds and cultures connect to writing, you know what I'm saying? They connect to, powerful words and statements and things of that nature. And also people gravitate to the negative. So you say something negative or whatever, through your words, or through music. Some people, they gravitate to that, or they connect with that because that's how they feeling right now. So I just understand the power of words and the energy transmitted, from those words and stuff like that when they're acted upon. And so I just try to make sure that I have something for, pretty much different demographics. I may feel like, okay, I want to do a rock inspired type song,
Mhm.
or I may want to write a book about, you know, loss, which that's where tears came from, tearing everything away, rebuilding strength. So
Mhm.
that was me being vulnerable, talking about um, life being different without my grandmother, and also my uncle as well, everything like that. So that I felt like was a change in me being able to say, you know what, you don't always have to keep it, just broad. You can actually have something, concise about what you're really going through and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And just understanding that what you're doing is not for a lost cause, and that's what I try to do when I put stuff out, and not just limit myself.
Mhm. Nice. Okay, wonderful. So this has actually been a really meaningful conversation. Before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share? Maybe a message or upcoming podcast that listeners should look out for?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. And I just want to say, this is a great platform, and I appreciate this opportunity to be able to tell people about, my life, and things that inspire me, and just give my advice, and hopefully it's helpful. For me, I'm working on, different projects right now. So I have this project that's kind of paying homage to different decades of music. So I'm starting from the 60s and working my way all the way up to where we're at right now as far as musically and stuff like that. So you're gonna hear um, different sounds and flows from back in the day, but it's gonna be dealing with topics that we all kind of go through, and that's called set the tone. And set the tone is just exactly what it's saying. Setting the tone for your life. Um, just kind of marking that have putting that mark in the sand and saying this is where I'm at right now, you know what I'm saying? And from this point, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to take control of my life, and I'm going to, stay motivated. I'm going to stay grounded. And I'm not going to let anybody else feel like they can tell me how to move or whatever the case may be. Because sometimes people are heavily influenced by those they're around, or maybe a family member, you know what I mean, that told them, hey, you need to live your life like this. And if you're not living like this, or you're not doing this, you're not successful. And it's just saying, you know what, I have the power just as anyone else around me. So that set the tone. And if you're within the DMV area, I'm also, performing, within the coming weeks and stuff like that. So I'm not sure when it's going to be aired, but I'll be performing at this African American event in Springfield on February 22nd. So you can definitely check me out on my IG and my Facebook as well. So I have the flyers and the promotions on that. And then I'm also looking at some other performances throughout this month of February, and then going into the next months and stuff like that. So just be on the lookout, for different things from me. I'm always doing something creative. So, check me out on my social media platforms. I'm always active every week. So you can find me there.
That's it for today's check in. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, hit that subscribe or follow button, and let's keep growing together. Hey, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, drop your after emoji in the comments and tell me what shifted for you. I'll see you next time on Miss Win Checking In, where creativity is a pathway to wellness.